Welcome to Black Mental Health Matters. My name is Madisun McNair. I'm an athletic artistic activist from Compton, California, with a vision to change and uplift the image of my people. I'm a young stewardess who has a passion for improving the well being of the community, and my mission is just getting started one show at a time. We are streaming to the United States of Africa, the Black Mental Health Matters YouTube channel, and LinkedIn Live. Today, we are discussing teen mental health, and I am pleased to have Cameron Temple as my special guest. Cameron is a musician born in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. He is currently pursuing a bachelor's degree in music production at Full Sail University. His relationship with his music and self is something that he would say is ruled by his mental health and at times lack thereof. So let's unpack that. We are discussing mental health when it comes to Black individuals in our age bracket, which is 18 to 25. The suicide rate among Black youth for years have trailed that of Asian and white students, but has doubled since 2014 and is now twice the statewide average, far exceeding those other groups. 12 of every 100,000 Black individuals, Black students 18 to 24 years old, died of suicide in 2020. Demographically, Black young people are also more at risk of depression, anxiety, and stress due to the pandemic and the recent spotlight of police violence against Black people. Gun violence, climate change, and economic uncertainty also play a role. So, Cameron, what are your initial thoughts upon hearing these facts?
It's definitely not surprising being in the world we're living in now. Children often, the new generation often has to struggle with mental health in a whole different way than anyone has done before, with the use of social media and different things changing every day.
So how would you say that the teenage mind gets affected by these disparities that we see and deal with today? I know you mentioned social media.
Yeah, social media. I believe um, a lot of the times it may be just people developing a group mindset, a mindset that might be pushed into the group. That's where a lot of stigmas come from. I also believe in the music that we make all day and the past experiences that we have. They really make up our mental stability growing up.
So you mentioned the music, like how that affects our mental health. Like, can you give me an example of that?
Well, a lot of cases in music, they're really helpful with mental health because they explore a lot of untouched areas that people need to be exposed to. But some other times, music might shed a light on a stigma in a way that's not showing that it's a stigma. It might shed a light on a stigma showing that it's a certain lifestyle that may be desired.
Okay, and you, I don't know how, you yourself make music and you said that's like ruled by your mental health and sometimes lack thereof. So let's kind of unpack that a little bit, I guess. Let's talk about your when you're mentally healthy and what that looks like for your music and for yourself.
I believe true, and at least in my case, true mental health and showing and expressing an abundance of that, I'd say, means being able to express your maybe trauma or appreciation of something through music, being able to communicate and express anything through music is a sign of good mental health, I believe. Um, I believe that signs of bad mental health, at least for me, it was not making music, not saying anything. Um, Oftentimes, as a musician, when I'm not making music at all, I am just struggling with my mental health. And when I make music, it's sometimes a sign of strength and a sign of like more like a I guess, battle cry and the battle of my mental health, because being able to say anything um, on a mic or on a beat is empowering, especially for a young Black man like myself.
So, how do we get more people or Black young people specifically to just express themselves and get out there and, like you said, talk to someone so you don't have such high suicide rates?
I believe it within themselves. It always starts with a passion. It always starts with a passion for something. You can't go out looking for something thinking that the solution is bettering yourself. You need to find something you enjoy. You need to find something that makes you feel like yourself, and you need to immerse yourself in that. And I believe personally that if you can lose yourself in that thing, then you can find a lot of outlets to be able to voice your mental health.
How do we help them find what they're passionate in?
I always thought that communities and like clubs and events that encourage some kind of passionate activity is always welcome. That could be a start to someone's passion. Going to a community where you might just draw and showcase your art that you draw. People can really find their passion in art doing that. All they need is an incentive.
With Black teens, it's always someone on the other side that's like putting their 2 cents in and judging. And lots of times, our generation doesn't want to be the butt of a joke, of the next joke, just because they express themselves and how they feel, and they're not in line with what society views or thinks is okay. How do we rewrite that narrative?
That's something I definitely noticed too, Madison. Um, if you're not if you're not expressing yourself as an artist or in general, or if you're not showing or expressing any trauma you've gone through, you're definitely at the butt of a joke. And once you do it, you're expected to answer to so many people. I think what we need to push, the mindset that we need to push, is once you do that, um, you need to understand that it's yours, and no one is going to inherently understand how you feel in your own mindset. That's why it's a struggle with mental health, and not like just an answer that no one knows yet.
And
And
everyone, oh, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, it's different with everybody. But the most important thing is to realize that you are empowering yourself once you make art. And once you make art, you have to realize that no one can take that away from you. No one can say it's theirs and change it. Once you make art, it's out in the world, and it's not just yours anymore, but it's not something that can be taken away from either.
But what about those individuals who don't feel like they're artists? What
I
if
believe
they feel more like just everyday people? What if they just want to be like a lawyer one day, or they just want to work at the bank or something like that? What if they want to have their own business, but not necessarily create? You know, like how? What do we have for those people?
um I believe whether you're an artist or not, you always need an outlet for something. Um, as far as someone who wouldn't be at creating anything, I believe it's not always about doing something that improves you career wise. I think you just need to, it's therapeutic to let yourself be able to do something that you enjoy. If it's not only important that you do something that you enjoy, but it's important that you are able to find an outlet to voice yourself, whether you're an artist or creates or not. Um, the important part is that you're creating something, because no matter what, when you create something, you're voicing your opinion.
So, if we go back to the statistics that we talked about a little bit earlier in the show, and if you're just now joining us, we're talking about teen mental health as far as the demographics between 18 and 25 years old. Um, a lot of young Black people have been more at risk of depression and anxiety and stress, all due to the pandemic and police violence against people like us and gun violence and things like that. What outlets can we use given that we're in a pandemic? We don't have access to all those types of things. What can we utilize that will better our mental health, especially with being as teenagers? Because we don't know ourselves entirely yet. So we're always changing. Our thoughts are always changing. Our peer groups are always changing. We're always second guessing ourselves, because we're at that age where we're impressionable. So, what outlets can we utilize during a pandemic that will help us with our mental and being more ourselves so we don't conform?
Well, I believe that I said that before, that social media is a big factor these days with social and mental health. I believe social media as a whole can be a good tool for doing right and doing wrong. But I believe uh, an outlet that we can use is like things like Snapchat and Instagram, helping and assisting people voice their um, struggles in different formats and posts and stuff like that. I also think that in those social media platforms, you can create a community and a group that can communicate within that platform that'll solve the problem of the pandemic. There's a lot of I believe that there's a lot of unique and new problems that rise up every day for people, and all they need is to be exposed to them.
Can you give me an example of like what one of the posts would say?
Well, if it was Instagram, I would say maybe say I was living under a stigma. I would voice that stigma and try to express how it's not the way it is, and welcome a conversation for anybody who sees that post and also agrees or disagrees.
I guess I can see what you're saying. Maybe utilizing a platform like Twitter where we have like groups like how Facebook has different you can create community groups within Facebook that talk about certain things, or it's like private or public, anybody can join, depending on how you um
I believe at the heart of the solution is communication. So
mhm.
any social media that can help people communicate with each other in a way they feel normal, I believe they can do wonders for mental health all around the world, especially with Black young teens.
I agree that conversations are empowering, especially when every party is open to them. But the thing that we constantly run into with using social media like Instagram as an outlet for Black teens to express themselves, we always run into the issue of that one token individual outside of the race that gives their opinion and their 2 cents to the conversation that doesn't better the conversation. It doesn't move the conversation along. It doesn't uplift. It doesn't make us feel heard.
I
What can
definitely agree, and I believe that alone, when people have different opinions, and of course they're outside the race and they try to add something that doesn't really add, I believe that's a sign of struggle themselves. And I think it's important to understand that there always going to be some risk of vulnerability and risk of um, bad intentions. once you voice your opinions or express yourself in social media. I don't think there'll ever be a way to completely solve the problem of it existing. I believe instead it should be encouraged to um, confront that, confront the comments, or confront um, any person who might question or criticize the methods of a person trying to express themselves. Because I believe it's a topic of communication that needs to be had regardless.
Mhm.
And obviously, there are some cases where people aren't trying to add, or they're trying to take away from something by critiquing or commenting, and it's hard to like often distinguish which one is which.
Mhm.
But I feel that the the thoughts and the critique that should be taken seriously um, should always be addressed. And other times when people may just want to see other people hurt, I feel there's not a way to stop that, but I feel like there's a way that we can encourage people to cope with that and live through that. And I believe the community would do that also.
Yeah, I feel like it's a lot about educating, because when you're outside of the race, you don't know how these everyday things affect us differently. Like, yeah, the whole world is in a pandemic, but every race is experiencing different aspects of the pandemic, like the healthcare issue with people of color. That's not something that non-people of color go through, you know. So when we're in the comments, I guess where we have the conversation, we're all coming together and it's like we're educating each other. And that one person who is uneducated comes into the mix and joins the conversation. How do we learn how to, or teach someone else how to attack the idea and not the person? Because that's what we go through a lot of times now, because if someone says something that we disagree with, we go after their character versus after what it is that they said.
And it definitely takes a lot of patience. I believe a lot of times that may be on us as the people who express themselves to not look at a person voicing their opinions or criticism as an attack, even if it may be an attack. Look at it as something they may be struggling with, and try to encourage some sort of cooperation instead of attacking. Um, I believe that with everything, uh, everybody just in one way or another needs help with something. And as soon as you notice that, it won't be hard to try to make the decision to understand and be patient and communicate more. Um, I believe that attacking someone's character is something that is hard
It's
not to do. Hard not to do when your character feels attacked. But I feel like a part of mental health is having the stability and the strength and I guess confidence in yourself to understand which is what and which is true. You can't let other people tell you what's true about yourself. That's the struggle with mental health because mental health is only a question that can be answered by the person that's dealing with it. Any other outside information is only just a suggestion and advice.
But it is also influential and it's impressionable, especially when you're at that age that we are, where we think of everything at least twice. Everything that we come across, everything that we hear, we always second guess it. And it was like, well, is it true? Could it be? And we start like reanalyzing ourselves and trying to like fit ourselves into this box that someone made that we don't necessarily need to put ourselves in, but we feel like we could potentially fit ourselves into that category. It could be a part of our intersectionality, but that's also something that we deal with or struggle with because we're trying to still
I
figure out
think
who
that's
we are,
standard.
discover ourselves. So how do we still be as open-minded as we are as being young people and hearing each other out and taking everything that we hear into consideration without it necessarily conforming or changing who we are as a person?
I think in conversations of self-expression and self-mental health, there needs to, in today's age, I feel like there needs to be a different criteria we look at each other with, because I feel like we look at each other with a certain criteria that isn't what mental health should be based on. We look at ourselves with a criteria that we see on a checklist on social media every day with different biases and stigmas. You should be like this, and you need to think like this, and you need to feel like this. When in reality, you don't need to look at social media as the answer. You need to look at social media as a platform, and you need to look within yourself for those answers, because the only correct way to be something is for you to decide to be it yourself. Like, for instance, for an example, um, let's say women all over the world, black women, black young women, see a lot of posts of having long, straight hair, right? Having long, straight blonde hair. Uh, I believe what we could do is encourage a mindset that looks for something that you think is cool yourself. You think is cool for you, and not just because it's cool in general. Um, we need to encourage forms of expression that arise only from you.
It's
I
funny how
think
you can use social media as an outlet, but it's also can be a root of our trauma. I think
definitely.
I think that's something that really affects teenage mental health because it's there's like you said, social media is good and bad. But how do we like separate that? How do we decipher what's good and what's bad? How do we figure out which stuff we can use and which stuff we shouldn't use? Because the way society works is everything that they want us to be is put out on social media, and we just consume that. We consume what is out there, and we digest it. And when we digest it, that's when we decide whether or not it's something that we should accept or just let go. But just digesting it alone and having that just like simmer in you and just it can take a toll, and it's traumatic, it's traumatizing,
I
because that's
believe
social media is also the main news outlet for us young people. So that's where we're seeing all the disparities and all the sad things that we're hearing about all over the world is through social media. So in some parts it's safe, in other parts it's not.
I definitely agree. I think a solution to that that splitting of good and bad intentions uh requires a lot of education. And not just about social media, about the thing you're passionate about or struggling with. It takes a lot of education in general for us to be mindful of all the things we say and all the things we do. You live in a day and age where it's imperative for one's career, one's lifestyle, to be mindful of the things you do and say. And I think the only way you can really do that is if you educate yourself as much as possible, not just about your own culture, not just about your own lifestyle, but educate yourself about how the world works and how you work inside the world. A lot of people believe things might be one way, and they might go on social media trying to experience something, and then what their experience isn't what they thought it was, and they pull solutions from maybe an uneducated background to try to change that. Where in reality, I feel like if we all educated ourselves just a lot more, we can go throughout things and go about doing different things in a much, much healthier manner.
Wow, that's powerful. That's a great place to close too, because like you have to really sit on that and let that sink in and think about it. So
We all need to educate ourselves.
we all need to educate ourselves. Thank you so much, Cameron Temple. I'm Madison McNair, and this has been Black Mental Health Matters Teen Mental Health. Thank you.